Welcome to the INFOWARS Nightly News. It is Tuesday, May 31st, 2016, and I'm Leanne McAdoo. Here's what's coming up tonight.
Tonight, social media giants team up to fight hate speech in the name of security. Then, what happened to the Libertarian Party? After that, the war between the press and politicians. That's next.
Speaking of the lack of violence on the right, Trump had a biker rally for veterans in celebration of Memorial Day this weekend. I was in D.C., 700,000 to 1 million bikers descending on the city. Not a single violent incident, no arrest.
But they're still going to try and push that narrative. Well, we have been witnessing an assault on free speech at college campuses across the nation, kind of putting that warning sign out there of where is this thing headed. Well, now we have to be worried about the fact that tech giants are circumventing the Constitution and now aligning with foreign governments in order to tackle online hate speech. So this is a new initiative. The European Union has actually reached an agreement with some of the biggest social media firms like Facebook and Twitter, Yahoo, other tech giants, Google, Microsoft, and they have pledged to tackle online hate speech in less than 24 hours. It's part of a joint commitment to combat the use of social media by terrorists. So they're saying beyond even these national laws that will criminalize hate speech, there's a need to ensure that such activity by internet users is expeditiously reviewed by online intermediaries and social media platforms. Now, we thought that they were already doing this with Twitter. We saw that they had created their Trust and Safety Council. And of course, those groups, they're not just across the board looking for terrorists. They are going specifically after the groups that they dislike or that they disagree with, like a lot of conservatives out there, anyone who would dare speak out against the current feminist movement here. And so they've created a code of conduct. And this is, they're saying that, they're bringing it up as it's coming in the wake of the bloody attacks in Paris as well as in Brussels by Islamic State. But these aren't the groups that are being targeted. We see that they're working freely online. The groups who have been targeted are people who are speaking out against the refugee invasion there in Europe. And now let's take a little flashback to when Matt Drudge was here in studio, and he was very prescient with this warning.
And you had the Justice Stephen Breyer said we need to look at a global law now. Remember, just recently
getting it lined up with it.
So they're getting ready for these decisions to come. You thought Obamacare was shocking. You thought some of these other decisions were shocking. Wait until these copyright laws work their way up and the Supreme Court decides you cannot have a website with news headlines linking across the board. Then that will end for me. Fine, I've had a hell of a run. It's 20 years next year, or 20 years about now. Hell of a run. I couldn't have gone any farther. I feel completely, I have gone as far out of the galaxy as I can on this. I still want to stay out here, but I've gone pretty damn far for what one individual can do in this culture. But I'm talking about the future. So I don't know why they've been successful in pushing everybody into these little ghettos of these Facebooks and these tweets and these Instagrams, these Instas. This is ghetto. This is ghetto. This is corporate. They're taking your energy. They're taking your energy and you're getting nothing in return. Nothing.
They're dumbing the language down. Twitter's designed to reduce the language directly out of 1984. It's ingsoc.
So Matt Drudge was here to say time to get out of these internet ghettos, because just like that, with just the flip of a switch, anything that you've built and created online can be taken away from you at someone else's discretion based on these arbitrary rules of what is or is not offensive. SiriusXM has just announced that Glenn Beck's show has been suspended over recent comments made by one of his guests, Brad Thor. As we've talked about last week, Brad Thor was on there saying, what patriot is going to take out a President Trump? Now, I can't imagine if someone had said that exact same thing about President Obama. Of course, they immediately would have come after them. Glenn Beck, he didn't stop and say, well, whoa, we mean politically take out, not, some patriot taking out the president. That's kind of a call to violence. Glenn Beck denies that, of course. But that's just one example of the kind of sweeping power that we are giving these tech giants. Radio, it's just something like 5 companies control it all. And so now we're trying to figure out what exactly constitutes offensive speech. Glenn Beck is out, but here we have a video of a 3-year-old girl who is saying we have to kill Donald Trump. So this is totally fine to train your kids up in this way.
We're going to kill Donald Trump.
Oh, is that a fact?
Why are we going to kill Donald Trump?
Because he's bad.
That's right.
We have to kill him.
Why is he bad?
Because he wants to take away from our family.
That's mean, huh?
Yeah.
Mean Donald Trump.
Yeah.
So what are we going to do then?
We're going to kill him.
So we are completely screwed as a country if this is the kind of way that we are raising the next generation. As we can see in schools, they're already being trained to hate this country, hate what the West stands for, calling for something entirely new, something that they don't even entirely understand because they refuse to educate themselves on actual history and not just cherry-picked ideas of what worked and what didn't work many, many times, but will work this time around. And now we actually have a Louisiana State Democrat, Barbara Norton, coming out saying that she doesn't want kids as grades 4, 5, and 6 to learn the Declaration of Independence because she says it's racist. It was written in a time when people had slaves, so no, not all men are created equal. And as many people have pointed out, no, it was not perfect back then. People did have slaves. However, this document was a means to encourage humanity toward a certain ideal, which, of course, I think we've done a very good job in the present day. But people don't want to look at that. They don't want to recognize how far we've come. They just want to say it was racist and forget about the fact that this is the greatest country ever, thanks to what the founding fathers put in place. They want to destroy that and completely make people, especially young people, not understand their history. So, this is the freedom of speech that makes the United States great. So we have to start asking, who is it that gets to decide what people are allowed to say? We have some young activists really coming out and trying to be the new rulers of everything. So this is a pretty influential group. We have the National Union of Students, and it's a Black Students Conference. There was a young woman just elected to be the Black Students Officer, Malia Buwadia. She was elected president of the union. And here's what she is proposing. She wants to abolish all prisons because they are racist and sexist. And this is, of course, pointing to the high rates of reoffending and disproportionate number of Black people in jail. She concludes, prisons are sexist and racist. Now, this is the same person who has also previously argued that it is Islamophobic to oppose ISIS. And she even described one university as a Zionist outpost because it has a large Jewish society. So you're not allowed to exist if you're Jewish, but if you like ISIS, that's totally fine. And so this is a girl that was just elected president of the National Union of Students, Black Students Conference. There she is the president. So leader with these type of viewpoints. And the thing is that we're now starting to witness that it's gotten so extreme and it's never enough. People can never be offended. And once you allow them to correct your speech even just a little bit, it's the whole give them an inch, they take a mile. So they're going to continue pushing on. And now we're seeing the political insanity of the left actually eating their own, fighting against their own. Hillary Clinton was criticized last week for not responding to trans-focused questionnaire that was sent to her by Trans United. It's a political action committee pushing transgender political issues, most notably the bathroom legislation. They said, Bernie Sanders, good job. He was praised because he completed the questionnaire. But then meanwhile, he was interrupted. The Secret Service actually had to storm the stage and protect him because 5 activists from Direct Action Everywhere, which is a radical animal rights organization, rushed the stage. And they said, he's really progressive. He promotes himself, progressivism and rejecting discrimination and inequality. But when it comes to the animals in the U.S. and around the world, discrimination and violence is the name of the game every single day. He claims to be progressive, but you can't be progressive if you oppose animal rights. And so that's what they're saying. You're progressive, but it's not enough. You have to do even more. And so once again, they storm the stage. Now, we remember what happened last time we had some activists storm the stage there. Bernie just stood back. And then, of course, he made his entire platform against the issues that these young radical activists are really pushing for. And so they are wanting him to recognize radical activism as a means to get things done. So this right there is, of course, very scary. Now, one of the things that you're hearing at a lot of these anti-Trump protests and everything is just the racism. Trump is so racist and he's sexist, xenophobic and everything. And how dare he want to vet refugees coming in from these countries where we don't know if they are potential terrorists or not. Well, is it racist to close our borders or vet people that could be carrying a contagious, infectious disease? This is something that the country has always done. You can't come into this country if you're carrying an infectious disease. But now they are reporting that a disfiguring tropical disease is sweeping across the Middle East. This is cutaneous leishmaniasis. It's transmitted through bites from sandflies, and it can result in horrible open sores as well as disfiguring skin lesions, nodules, or papules if left untreated. So it gets in your bloodstream, and of course, it can be transmitted from person to person via coughing, blood transfusions, of course, bodily fluids. So this is something that's really affecting these regions that are fleeing their countries and into Europe, but that's racist. I'm not supposed to say that. We should be just like Germany, who is experiencing 18 women allegedly sexually assaulted at a music festival this weekend, and they were able to catch 3 asylum seekers from Pakistan, aged between 28 and 31, because they were able to quickly intervene. However, they say there could be more people who took part in these attacks because, as we've seen, what they do is they surround women by a huge group of men, and then they sexually assault them when they're in these large groups. Or we could be like Sweden, who is now toying with the idea of creating women-only swimming pools to deal with their rising immigrant population there. They want to be accommodating to them and have women-only swimming pools because women and men are not allowed to fraternize. I guess it could keep the raping down, but that's how it is. It's like no assimilation from on their part. It's the entire country has to assimilate to their way of living, and a very aggressive way of living, if you ask me. And we also are getting a moral response from the Dalai Lama, right? And you would think the Dalai Lama would say, you know, look into the face of every single refugee, see the children and the women, and you can feel their suffering. And it's the duty of a human being who is more fortunate to help them. But check this out. The Dalai Lama says, even on the other hand, there are too many now. Europe, for example, Germany cannot become an Arab country. Germany is Germany. There are so many that in practice it becomes difficult. From a moral point of view, I think that the refugees should only be admitted temporarily. The goal should be that they return and help rebuild their countries. So this is the Dalai Lama. He's dedicated his entire existence to enlightened thinking. And this is coming from him, someone who, you know, dedicates himself to helping the less fortunate out there. Even he can see the writing on the wall. So what is the madness that we are doing with just importing people willy-nilly and calling people racist if they want to vet them for being a potential terrorist or carrier of an infectious, disfiguring disease, I might add. So this is, of course, something that Trump has been at war with a lot of people here in this country and elsewhere. But he's also now at war with the press, who he's been having to push back against them calling him racist, sexist, homophobic, even though he never made those comments. But now they're also calling him out saying, hey, what did you do with all of those, that $6 million you said you raised for veterans? As you recall, he had that rally there for veterans rather than doing the debate. Well, here's how he responded to a reporter's question.
I'm not looking for credit, but what I don't want is when I raise millions of dollars, have people say, like this sleazy guy right over here from ABC. He's a sleaze in my book. You're a sleaze because you know the facts, and you know the facts well. Go ahead.
So he calls this guy sleazy because he's calling out the media saying, I see how you guys work, I know how you operate, and I'm going to